welcome back everybody. We're going to do a tomato review today on this tomato right here, and this is called the RIESENTRAUBE tomato. I believe that's how you say it. It stands for, it's in German, it means something like clusters of grapes or something like that. And so this is a multiflora variety. And what is a multiflora variety? So when tomatoes grow, they grow on what's known as a bract, which is a stem, and then off of that stem you'll see, like, you know, one tomato pop off here, one there, one there, one there. This stem and what holds the tomatoes is called a bract. B-R-A-C-T, I believe it's spelled. And so on the regular varieties of tomatoes, that bract is usually, like I told you, it's one stem with tomatoes alternating all the way down that stem. On what's known as a multiflora variety, it's what it is it's multiple stems that come off that bract, and it just hangs down like a cluster of grapes, basically. If you ever seen Barry's Wild Crazy Tomato, and you could see how all those tomatoes really come off of like one branch. There's like 50, 60 tomatoes on one bract, basically, but it's just like a big hanging cluster of them. That is what is referred to as multiflora. This is basically a multiflora variety. It puts out a hand, just like, it looks like a cluster of grapes, just a whole bunch of these tomatoes that basically hang off of one bract. And this variety is a highly productive variety. It'll put out literally hundreds upon hundreds of tomatoes pretty much all season. If you start this thing early and this plant gets to like 10 or 12 feet long, you will literally get more tomatoes off of this than you possibly know what you can do with. Believe me when I tell you. So I don't always grow it every year because it actually overproduces tomatoes for me. And you know, I'm growing like 100, 150 new varieties every year. And so this tomato actually becomes a burden to me when I'm having to process so many other varieties. This becomes a problem because it's producing so many tomatoes and I need to do something with it. So I end up just throwing them in a blender and turning them into a quick sauce thing, and then canning it or eating it or something. But it's a very, very heavy producing variety. I've been growing this variety for over 10 years now. I've been growing this way back in the early 2000s when I first heard about it, and I've been in love with this variety ever since. I've been growing it on and off throughout the years. So let's take a closer look at it. Now this is a good ripe version of it, and in general what you're going to see, you can't see it on this one because the nipple got pushed in, because I like to touch those nipples. Here we go. Now you can see that they get a nipple on there. If you look at it really closely, you can get an idea what that might look like. And so it's got a little pointy nipple on there, and that is what this tomato is known as. If this tomato doesn't have that little point, then you're not going to. If this tomato doesn't have that point, then it's not a RIESENTRAUBE. RIESENTRAUBE has to have that little point on it. And here's an unripened one. I figured show you that too. You can see how to really you can see the definition really good on this. And it's bichambered basically. You can see the rib right here where it's bichambered. So if you cut it right down that rib, you cut it right in the middle, seeds will be on both sides, or you could cut it in half and squeeze them like I do. And we'll show you the inside. Let the camera focus. Alright, so that's that. So that's the inside. I'll give you an idea of the weight. Now these are larger than your normal cherries. I would probably say this tomato's like 1.5 times the size of a normal cherry tomato. So these got some weight on it, and they can get a little bigger than what you see. But this is about the larger of the sizes you're generally going to see. This is probably going to be average, so you can kind of look at those two. The one over here is average, and the one over there is like the larger size. And they can get a little bit bigger than that, believe it or not. Not by much, but a little bit they can get. Okay, so let's see what the weight is for you guys who want to know what the weight. I got this little hornet thing flying around here. He's getting annoying. I'm going to have to spray him or something. Alright, let's take the bigger one. Let's see what that weighs. See that? 0.8. Now, I've had these as heavy as almost an ounce. This is 0.8 of an ounce. That one's almost an ounce by itself. Here's another one. Half of an ounce. Doesn't look that much smaller than that, but that's a lot lighter. Grab one more, give you an idea. 0.5, maybe 4.5. This will give you an idea on the weight, what you're looking at. So let's go over there and let's do a bricks. A very heavy producing variety, guys. This variety is known for its, and these tomatoes are really good too. I mean, these are very, very delicious tomatoes. Oh wow, this is 6.5 on the bricks, guys. This is going to be a good review right out the gate. Now, I'm a big fan of this tomato, and this is one of the reasons why, because it's going to have a really good balance of numbers. I can tell you that just by that 6.5 for this size tomato. That's going to be a good one. All right, so let's do a taste test on that. Wow. The Riesentraube, guys, this tomato never fails me. I really love this tomato. I'm telling you, taste-wise, I do so many new tomato reviews that I forget some of the classics, and this is a classic to me. And I really forget what they taste like after a while. But man, when I revisit these, it's like, wow, it's like a whole new experience again. Wow, that's amazing, guys. Man, they really taste good this year. No lime in the soil either. I'm gonna do one more. I gotta taste this big one. And guys, I got a lot of tomatoes out there. They're just all green right now. They didn't ripen yet. These are just some of the ones that fell down. All right, let's go over the numbers. Let's back you out a little bit. Okay, let's go over the numbers, guys. Again, I'm going to give this a high rating right out the gate. I could probably jump right over to the overall rating and just give you the number. But I want to walk you through all these little things that I judge when I judge a tomato. All right, we'll start off with the sweetness. The sweetness was very, very sweet. I'm going to put that sweetness at about a 31, 32 on the sweetness. It was definitely up there. It almost had a sugary sweetness in the beginning, and then it tapers off. But that sugary sweetness, it does carry through all the way to the back of your tongue, and that aftertaste really hangs around. I'm very impressed with the sweetness with this tomato. I always have been, and I always will be, even till this day. So sweetness was quite high. Tangy was also quite high. I'm going to put that at about a 35 on a tanginess. It was very nice. It's a very smooth type of tanginess too. It's not a a tanginess that makes you kind of there's a strong tanginess or acidy type of smooth. This tanginess is very, very smooth. Between the sweetness and the tanginess, it's an incredible bond between the two. I don't know any other way to describe it, because sometimes that bond doesn't balance out right, or it doesn't taste too good. But the bond on this tomato between that sweet and tangy, oh my God, guys, that is a match made in heaven type of bond there. Okay, so let's go to tomato flavor. So what is the tomato flavor on here? Again, when we talk about tomato flavor, we're talking about the prominence, how concentrated was that flavor overall inside the whole tomato profile. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about how good was the flavor. I'm rating it based on the goodness of the flavor. No, we're talking about the strength of that flavor. The strength was quite high on this, and it carries in as soon as you eat the tomato, goes to the back of your tongue, hangs around back there on the back of your tongue, and it doesn't go away. That is a good hallmark for a really, really good tomato. Why? Because it draws you back for another bite. And I've made sauces with these tomatoes, and God, these tomatoes make a fantastic tomato sauce. Let me tell you, I've had 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes to fool around with, making different things with it. I've made tomato sauce with just these tomatoes by themselves. One of the best sauces I ever made in my life was from these tomatoes. When you let them fully ripen, don't let them ripen to the point where they start to rot and they start to taste sour from rotting, like they fermented in the skin. Don't let them go that ripe. You just want to get them ripe enough so they're getting, they're nice and pink. That sugar is going to be at its highest level right there. And when you make sauce with that, your eyeballs are going to roll back inside of your head. I'm telling you. Believe me when I tell you, I know about tomatoes. That is an amazing tomato sauce right there. But as far as the flavor goes, we're going to go with an 8 on that flavor. I'm going to say an 8 because that flavor was transcended from the tip of my tongue to the back of my tongue, and it stayed there, and it's still there even right now, making me want to go back for another tomato and end this video so I can eat the rest of these tomatoes. They're that good, guys. That's how good they are. That tomato flavor is a remarkable flavor that cannot be beat. It's one of my favorite tomatoes here when it comes to these size little large cherries or whatnot. Moisture was about a 6.5. I'd almost go 7 on the moisture. It's very moist. It melts in your mouth. It's moist. What I like about this type of moisture on this particular variety of tomato, is when you do make sauce with it, it's really wet and watery, and the flesh really breaks up good. So in a lot of the dishes I make, I don't necessarily like to cook the sauce all the way down to the point where it's dry and it's nasty. I like to just slow cook my sauce just a little bit, and I don't like to dry that wateriness out of the sauce. I like it when it's a wet, watery type of sauce. And so I cook with these tomatoes. It's got plenty of water. I don't need to add water to it. It's a beautiful tasting tomato when you make sauce with it. Let me tell you something. So the moisture, we're going to put at about a 6.5 on that. It was a perfect moisture. Definitely, right in the top line of some of my top rated tomatoes for this year. Tardiness, there wasn't really any tardiness on the fully ripened ones, but some of the ones that are kind of orange still, and they're not like getting dark. When they get a little darker than this, you don't taste anything. But if you eat them when they're kind of like even like this kind of, well, they might have a little bit of tanginess, and you can feel it in the back of your jaws a little bit. And you can kind of get that sour tangy effect, like when you lick a lemon, you get that little weird feeling underneath your jaw and by the back of your jaw, that little weird kind of thing. I kind of picked that up, but very little on the tomatoes that weren't totally ripe. But when these totally ripe, you don't have any tardiness. So we'll just basically go with a 0 on the tardiness. I just figured I'd mention that to you. Undertones, there's no undertones to it, but it does have a funny kind of flavor itself. The tomato flavor itself has a kind of a very unique type of flavor to this tomato. So oftentimes I just scoot that down over to the undertones, and I'll just call it the undertone. But there was a little something in there, but I'm not going to say it was the undertone. It's the actual accent of the tomato is what I was tasting. So we're going to go 0 on the undertones. The texture, we're going to go texture. We're going to go 6 on the texture. It's just about perfect on there. Again, when they're really ripe, they're very wet. They're very soft. They disappear in your mouth almost instantaneously. The skins chew up very nice. And, it didn't really, the reason why I'm mentioning the skins right now, I separated the skins from the reading. And the reason why I'm mentioning skins now is if that tomato is too watery and too soft, that texture is too soft, the skins will be left in your mouth before you could even chew on anything. So that's why I mentioned that. But it wasn't the case. I was able to chew that tomato up, and it was pretty much chewed up and swallowed without me having a struggle chewing the skin by itself. So it broke up nicely, and you need a good texture to do that. So I'm going to say that this tomato was probably around a 6 as far as texture go. Again, when I talk about texture, we're talking about the dry, chalky effect you get from tomatoes sometimes, or sometimes you get a grainy type of an effect, or a creamy, mushy type of an effect from tomatoes, and it's dry and creamy. That's what I'm talking about. This tomato was nothing like that at all. That's why I'm putting it at 6. It was a really good texture. It was just a little soft and wet because of the overripeness. I probably would have went to a 7, but even still, that's still a good number. 6 is your target number for texture. 6 to 6.5. 6 to 6.5 is really most of your target numbers, but some of them I judge a little higher or lower would be better. Production is off the chart. We're going to go with a 9 on the production, even a 9.5 if you want. It's just absolutely off the chart. One plant can literally produce several hundred tomatoes and then some. You could probably produce as much as 1,000 tomatoes from one plant if you got it in really good soil and you're not getting whacked by the blight. If you're not getting whacked by the blight and that plant can just literally produce tomatoes all year, you'll have more tomatoes than you'll ever possibly know what to do with this particular variety. It's an absolutely incredible producer of tomatoes, and it's not a strenuous type of a plant to grow. It doesn't need your baby, mommy and daddy to baby it all the time. This tomato, you can put it in your garden, water it once in a while. When you first plant it, you want to water it every day to get it going. But once it gets going and you put a good mulch down, you don't never have to water this plant again. In fact, it doesn't want you to water it. So leave it alone, you have to water it. You don't need to overwater your plants. That also kind of contributes to bad tomato flavors. You're better off just let the plant grow, let it do what it's got to do, and those flavors are going to pan out real good because you're not overwatering. And so the production is off the charts. We're going to go with a 9.5 on the production on this. What I'm going to do in the future, just to digress here for a second, what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to make a cheat card out of something that I can just wipe clean. I can write it in marker and then wipe it clean. And once I do that, I'm going to put all my ratings on there so I have the numbers. You can look at it on the side, you know, moisture, tardiness, this, and I can just write my numbers in. Because I know what my numbers are as soon as I'm done with the tomato, just about. Okay, so skins, we're going to go with a 3 on the skins. It was definitely a little above average. In other words, when we're rating the skins, we're rating for how is it getting stuck between your teeth? Is it a thick skin? Is it getting stuck between the gums of your mouth? Is it a thin skin that just you can't get out of your mouth? You ever get those tomato skins from really thin skinned tomatoes but really won't break up and they get stuck to the roof of your mouth? I literally got to take like a dental pick and scrape the roof of my mouth to get that skin off of there because it doesn't come off any other way. And I don't really have nails, so I'm not scraping my mouth with my nails. I just scrape it out with a dental pick and get that skin out of it. That's a real low rated tomato. A higher rated tomato is when they break up really nice and there's nothing left. You don't even know that you ate a tomato skin. That gets the highest ratings. So we're going to go with a 3 on this rating here. It was pretty good. I did have to chew it a little, but it wasn't bad. It was nice. It was actually a really nice effect. Seeds, we're going to go a little above average on the seeds. I'm going to go about a 6.5 on the seeds. It is a very seedy variety. It can produce a lot of seeds, especially when these tomatoes get to the larger sizes. Again, this is about your average size, but these tomatoes can get almost 1.5 times the size of what you're looking at here. They can get quite large, and when they get that big, they are absolutely loaded with seeds. I mean, there's so many seeds in there, and when you bite them, they squirt all the way across the garden. So just keep in mind that these tomatoes can be really loaded with seeds. So we're going to go with about a 6 on the seeds. I think 6 is a good number. It's just a little above average. It's definitely a heavy seed producing variety for a tomato this size, and or if you want to go to the plum size or Campari size. This ain't a plum tomato, by the way. This is really considered a cherry tomato. So we did that. We're on the seeds now. How would I rate this tomato overall? And part of what's going to go into this rating of this overall, just so you know, is I've been growing this tomato for many years, and it really holds high regards to me, and I hold it very close to my passion when it comes to tomatoes. So this variety is going to get somewhat of a high rating just because of its experience and the history I've had with this tomato and having successfully grown it for so many years. So I'm pretty much going to go with about a 1.2, and 1.2 is just right below the number 1 for this year. It says right below it. Whatever information I have on the RIESENTRAUBE, I'll put in the description below, be on the website as well. I'm also going to leave a link in the description below where you can go to the website and buy seeds if you want to give this one a go. And I do recommend actually trying this one. If you're a tomato lover and you want to try something new, definitely give this one a go. You're going to like this tomato variety. It's got a lot of fun things about growing this variety. So anyway, that's it, guys. That was your tomato review for the RIESENTRAUBE tomato. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.